Good day, my name is Balogubumi and I'm the Group 1 leader of our international business project. Firstly, I would like to introduce the company at the heart of our analysis, MTN Nigerian PLC. Why MTN is Africa's largest telecom operator with over 77 million subscribers and a 40% market share. It is also highly dependent on Nigeria with few other key markets. This concentration causes exposure to specific regulatory, economic, and competitive risk. Our findings also shows that MTN core strengths are its scale, brand, and innovation in fintech, while they also have their weaknesses, which are regulatory pressure, foreign exchange exposure, and increasing cost pressure. We've identified significant opportunities in areas like mobile money, in continue 5G deployment, and potential entry into new markets. Conversely, MTN faces threats from their strong opponents like Airtel, Orange, and market dominance of services like M-Pesa. To address these factors, we've considered three main strategies about MTN. MTN Nigerian PLC, launched on 16 May 2001, is Nigeria's largest telecom provider. The company operates an extensive network offering wide range of services such as voice calls, data, digital platform, and enterprise solution. A key aspect of their strategy is fintech with their Momo mobile money service and their African super app, Ayoba. MTN has been in the forefront of technology, consistently leading the rollout of advanced networks like 4G and 5G, expanding connectivity to millions of Nigeria in both rural and urban areas. As you can see, MTN has a dominant position in the market, but that's not all. To fully understand the company's future, we need to identify the key challenges and questions that will drive our analysis. I will now be handing it over to Helen, who will walk us through the statement of analysis, identifying the key strategies and questions that we aim to address throughout our analysis.
MTN is the biggest telecommunications company in Nigeria, and it extends its services to the western part of Africa and also the southern part of Africa. But despite its success in these regions, it is yet to expand to other regions such as Northern Africa, East Africa, and the Middle East. Because it has not expanded its services to these parts, it faces two major consequences. The first is missed opportunities. It is not in these regions, and so it cannot possibly explore the potential profits it will get from these regions. Another consequence is that MTN risks being seen globally because it is not operating on a global scale. It cannot possibly become a global telecommunications leader. So, what exactly are the challenges faced by MTN? Why can't MTN expand to these areas? So, what exactly are the challenges? Why can't MTN expand to these regions? Well, there are basically three challenges. Number one is fierce competition, number two is cultural adaptation, and number three is high cost of entry into these markets. So, these are the major challenges faced by MTN. What are the possible solutions to these problems? Number one is MTN can invest in digital infrastructure. It can also, collaborate with local brands in order to navigate the potential cultural differences in order to address that problem. And it can also develop local language artificial intelligence models in order to address the issues. So by addressing these challenges and exploring the solutions, MTN can become a global telecommunications leader. Now, what are the objectives and goals? My colleague Sarah would be coming to handle that aspect.
Moving to the objective and goals of MTN. To expand into the new market, MTN needs to reduce its overdependence on Nigeria, South Africa, and Africa by entering into the East Africa and the Middle East. Its main objective is to diversify revenue streams and to reduce risks in existing markets and position itself as a stronger pan-Africa global network partner. Two, we have strengthened fintech and digital services. MTN wants to use mobile money and other digital platforms as an entry point into the market region in order to focus on its financial tech strength and digital services. Three, We have formed strategic alliance and partnership. MTN wants to partner with government, local operators and regulators in order to reduce costs and risks and to also build itself as a stronger development partner. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague Sheila to talk about the situation analysis. Thank you.
For the SWOT analysis, we're going to start from strengths. So for the first one is market leadership and scale. MTN remains the largest telecommunication operator in Nigeria with about 77.1 million subscribers and also commands about 38 to 40% market share. This dominant scale gives MTN a better competitive advantage in terms of brand equity and infrastructure reach. Second one is diversified revenue stream. Apart from data services and also communication services, MTN also has expanded into fintech, which is the Momo Bank app, that also expanded into cyber security services, and it has also expanded into digital services. That's the Ayobo Super App. So for the extensive infrastructure investment, MTN has about 42,000 4G sites, leading in 4G penetration in Nigeria, and it has also created about created 5G sites in about 13 states in Nigeria, which this investment will help customers have a better use of their service. It will help in customer service. It will make the customer service better. So for the weakness aspect in the SWOT analysis, first one we have is over dependence in Nigeria. So Nigeria generates about 90% of MTN's West Africa revenue, which makes it only which makes the revenue mainly coming from Nigeria. So for regulatory and compliance challenges, Nigeria has a history of regulatory disputes. In 2015, MTN Nigeria was fined with 1.4 trillion naira because it failed to comply with one of their rules and regulations. For the high operational cost and FX exposition, this just talks about the rising costs of diesel and the depreciation of naira. So for the opportunities, expansion into unpenetrated regions. Internet in Nigeria is still below 50%, so there's still an opportunity for them to expand more. Fintech and financial inclusion growth, 5G and digital economy push, then regional expansion. Regional expansion, you can still expand more into other parts of Africa like East Africa and all. So for the threats, we have intense competition from other digital service communication providers like Glo, Airtel, then macroeconomic instability. This is just more about inflation and the devaluation of naira. Then the regulatory and political risk. This just talks about how um, tariffs, talks about the change in tariffs and all. Thank you. So I'll call on my colleague Elizabeth. So she's going to give more analysis on. She's going to talk about the situation analysis, but from the PES2 aspect. Thank you.
So I'm going to be talking about the PESO analysis, the political and economical factors. Starting with the political factors, we have regulatory tariff adjustments. In January 2025, the Nigerian Communication Commission approved an increase in telecom tariff by 50%, which is the first in decades, allowing MTN and other operations to absorb rising energy and infrastructure costs. While these factors um, helped the, the revenue growth to potentially increase, it triggered resistance from labor unions and consumer groups. Then going on to government influence and policy risks, as telecoms are deemed critical infrastructures, MTN is under regulatory oversight. So political and policy risks like policy shifts like SIM registration, data privacy, and tax obligation affects the operations of telecoms. We have regional political instability. In MTN operates in multiple African countries like Nigeria, South Africa, and Ghana, which expose them to risks like political unrest, regulatory changes, and currency controls, disrupting their service delivery. Moving on to economic factors, we have currency volatility, naira depreciation, and foreign exchange scarcity raise operational costs for telecom corporations. Then we have high inflation and reduced consumer purchasing power. Nigerian inflation reached 21% in 2025, and it has weakened disposable income, which has pressured consumer spending. Then we have high interest rate environment, and we have growing demand for digital services. Then introducing my colleague Raphael to continue the analysis.
All right, now let's talk about the social, legal, and environmental factor of the pestle analysis. Under the social factors, Nigerian young population is a huge advantage with a median age of 18. There is a huge demand for fintech gaming and mobile data. However, over 60 million Nigerians are still unbanked, which is why MTN Momo services is very important. In 2024 alone, it processed over 11 trillion transactions. On the legal side, MTN operates under strict regulation from the NCC, which means penalty for non-compliance can be massive. The industry also faces high taxation with over 40 levies nationwide. Environmentally, MTN depends on diesel generator in over 40,000 bases, which can be costly and unsustainable. Climate risks like flooding can also threaten operations, which is why MTN is aiming at building solar hybrid powered solutions and aiming at creating a net zero carbon emission by 2040. All right, I would like to introduce my colleague Tiana to cover the financial analysis aspects. Thank you.
Hi, so I'll be presenting the financial analysis of MTN Nigeria for 5 years, 2020 to 2024. The first chart is the revenue generation chart, and MTN Nigeria experienced like a massive increase from 2020 to 2024 with the compound annual growth rate of about 26%. And this growth was brought about from their increase in sales in their data service. As you can see, the blue bar chart indicates the revenue in billion naira, and the red line indicates the EBITDA margin. And from 2020, they had sales of 15,000, and in 2024, they had a sales of about 35,000. And this EBITDA margin indicates the profitability rate of MTN Nigeria. Then the second chart is the profitability chart, and this blue line indicates the gross profit margin, and the red line indicates the net income margin. So the gross profit margin has an average of about 80%, and the net income margin had like a negative, entered into the negative territory from 2023 to 2024. And this was brought about because of the massive currency revaluation. And for profitability, it shows that the profitability line, it showed that MTN Nigeria remained strong despite the inflationary pressure. The third chart is the liquidity ratio chart, and the blue line indicates the current ratio, and the red line indicates the quick ratio. So this current ratio here, it shows that from 0.70 to it had like a decline to 0.40, and this was because of the so the blue line from indicates that MTN Nigeria had a reduced ability to use their short-term liabilities to their short-term assets to meet their current liabilities, and the red line indicates that excluding the inventory, yeah, if we exclude inventory, that means MTN Nigeria will have whatever. So the next chart is the long-term solvency chart, and this is just basically telling us about the debt coverage of MTN Nigeria, and we'll be using the debt to EBITDA ratio. So check, and it shows that from 2022 to 2023, they maintained their debt rate slightly, but from 2023 to 2024, we can see that there's an increase, and that's because like they added more debt um, into their assets. So I'll be introducing my next colleague Lasifa to talk about the Potter's five forces.
So I'll be talking about Potter's five forces. The first point is threat of new entrants. It is very, very expensive to start up telecommunication companies in Nigeria, and then the government rules are very, very strict, and then we have big players that are dominating the field already. And the second point is the bargaining power of suppliers. Who are the suppliers? Um, MTN get their equipment from foreign companies like Y, Meta. They basically depend on these foreign companies. And why do the suppliers matter? When exchange rates increases or prices go up, this makes MTN ties with them stronger. So the third point is bargaining power of buyers. As of 2024, MTN has over 77 million subscribers, making MTN the biggest telecom company with the highest subscribers. So we all know that Nigerians are price sensitive, especially during inflation procedures. This basically means that when prices of goods or services increases, MTN will automatically try to switch to the other alternative. Say for instance, when MTN removed 6 GB for 15K, MTN subscribers moved to Airtel and Nine Mobile and the rest. Then we have growing adoption of fintech apps and data services. Fintech apps like PalmPay, OPay basically provide other data bundles that are not on MTN app and Airtel app. So this gives the consumers higher bargaining power. The next point is threat of substitute. OTT services like WhatsApp, Telegram, Instagram, they reduce the dependence on traditional SMS. For example, we all know that before, I don't know, people still use it, phone for one SMS message. But now basically people just use WhatsApp and Instagram to like communicate. Then we have other broadband providers like Fiber One, Starlink, Smile. This reduces the dependence on telecoms. Then we also have public Wi-Fi initiatives. Say for instance, the University of Lagos students would rather stay at Senate building or like Zenith Bank to use the public Wi-Fi instead of going to the hostel to actually use their data. The last point is industry rivalry. The Nigerian market is primarily dominated by MTN, Airtel, and Nine Mobile. So this basically cause price wars. For example, MTN can just decide to wake up one morning and be like, they want to like give customers free 10 gigabytes, and this would actually like prompt Airtel, for example, to actually like decide they want to give free 60-minute calls to their subscribers. And also, we know market penetration is about 70%. Basically, everybody has their own SIM cards, they have their own numbers. So for MTN to like get new subscribers, they can decide that if you get to buy a new MTN number, for example, you get like 3 GB or you get like 6 months data plan for free. So I'm going to introduce Joseph now to talk about the alternative and evaluation. Thank you.
Alternative and evaluation. We'll be looking at the greenfield expansion, direct market entry. This strategy basically speaks about MTN going into a new market and then creating their own infrastructure and taking control of their operations, thereby allowing them to take full control of their operations and then gain full long-term profit. So the implementation phases. The first one is identifying high potential, unprecedented markets. This states that MTN should make their research of markets that is less penetrated and that has high profits. Secure telecom licenses. This speaks about MTN going to the government and securing every legal document they need for their operations in the country. The next one is invest in network infrastructure. This basically speaks about MTN investing in infrastructure that would enable them to carry out their operations in the country. And then the next one is roll out bundle services. So this speaks about MTN giving out their services to the people. And then the last one, build MTN brand recognition. This involves MTN doing everything they can to make awareness to the people about the services they offer. Now, moving on to the benefits that MTN would get. So, the first one is full ownership and control. This will enable MTN to get full ownership and control of all of their operations. The next one is long-term profit. And then the next one is strengthens MTN as market leaders because MTN diversify and goes into different countries, so it strengthens their brand and it strengthens the brand as a whole like that. So the next one is direct access to massive growing population. This enables MTN to tap into growing population in new markets. And then the last one, opportunity to replicate Nigeria, South Africa business model. This basically speaks about MTN replicating the business model they've used in Nigeria that has been successful to their business model in South Africa. And then the limitations they would face extremely high cost of entry. Basically, the infrastructure they are going to need, they are going to use for their operations would not come cheap. So they would face that as a limitation. And then long payback period. Um, there's a lengthy period on return on investment. This basically just speaks about lengthy period on return on investment. The next one is exposure to political slash regulatory risk. This speaks about the political and regulatory challenges they would face in the new market. And then the next one is strong competition from en- entrenched incumbents. This speaks about the strong players that has been in the market before. So they'll be facing a lot of challenges, a lot of competitions from them. So the last one is risk of cultural slash consumer resistance. This speaks about the potential resistance they might face from local consumers to foreign operators. So I'll be calling on my colleague Ademoyi to speak on the rest of alternative and evaluation.
All right, guys. So to the rest of the alternatives and evaluation, we have strategic partnerships and joint ventures. And basically, we have three aspects under this, which is the implementations, which focuses on the steps we can take under strategic partnerships and joint ventures. We also have the benefit, what MTN stands to gain, and the limitations. Under the implementations, basically, is to identify strong local operators. That's the first thing MTN should do. And once they identify strong local operators, they can form joint ventures for telecom or fintech services. Next, they can leverage the local partners' infrastructure. And next, they share investment, risk, and profit with the partners that can be decided upon momentarily. And next, they can expand MTN's influence. Now, under the benefits, the benefit of exploring the strategic partnerships and joint ventures basically will allow MTN to experience lower capital requirements, which means because they've used the local operators, they don't need to establish new infrastructures. So they don't need a lot of capitals. Next one is faster access to markets through existing structure. There's already a structure, which means there's already a market, so they can access this market faster. Political and regulatory acceptance. Their local operators already have familiarities with the political and regulatory acceptance, so it's easier for MTN to just going through there. Risk sharing reduces financial exposure because of the nature of the partnership. MTN does not put so much into infrastructure, which reduces their financial exposure. Knowledge transfer from local partners. There's no way you partner with local operators that they won't inform you and give you knowledge about their existing market. The limitations around this is shared decision making. MTN can no longer just take sole decisions by themselves because they have to consult with their partners. Lower financial returns. If MTN was going to make 5 billion in revenue per month, because they are now partnered with their local operators, which now have splits in the revenue, it will be shared. Potential for conflicts of interest with partners. There are certain times human beings are involved, there will be conflict of interest and clashes. Brand visibility, which basically means if MTN partners with operators, the nature of their deal could depend that they would be exposing MTN lesser than they would have if MTN was fully in charge of the infrastructure. Exit barriers. MTN cannot easily leave the deal because of, you get it. The next one is digital first expansion, fintech and super play app. And this strategy basically emphasizes on the opportunities that come with exploring digital expansion first before going there physically. And what you can now do is, these are the implementations, the steps to take. The first one is to secure fintech licenses. For every country, there are regulations and there are licenses you have to observe. So MTN can first secure a fintech license. Then they launched the Momo app. We all know their Momo mobile money, and that's been moving, and lending services. They can launch it in other countries. They can also deploy their Ayoba app. And next, they can partner with local banks, fintech, and merchants to aid the ease of transactions in the host country. Then it can scale digital ecosystem that way. And once they scale the digital ecosystem, they can now go there physically. And the benefit of all of this is really low cost and asset light model. They don't need to establish so much. All they have to do is probably create an app and run maybe a little marketing online. Faster market entry. When you are doing things in the digital space, the market entry is pretty low because there's not a lot of infrastructure involved. Taps into Africa's rising digital economy and unbanked population. This is self-explanatory. Using digital form, you can easily tap into Africa's rising digital economy and the unbanked population. There's a lot of, you know, mobile apps and people are using digital space much more this season. Resilient against voice data revenue stagnation. Build cross-border synergies. These are basically the benefits for anything. Then for the limitations, dependent on strict regulatory approvals, it's very dependent. There are some countries that will have very strict regulatory approvals, so it's dependent on that. Lacks slickiness without bundled telecom services. The risk of being perceived as just another fintech app, that is very possible, and that's why you have to. Is a big limitation basically. Increased cybersecurity and compliance risks. Anything that has to do with digital, there's always the issue of cybersecurity. And that's everything under the alternatives and evaluation. Thank you. All right, so I'll introduce my colleague Tolu to come and talk about the recommendation and contingencies. Thank you.
My name is Tulopa Ajao and I'll be taking us through the recommendations. After evaluating MTN's options, we recommend a digital first expansion strategy. By leading with Momo, Ayuba, and cloud services, MTN can scale faster and cheaper than building new telecom infrastructure. Once digital adoption takes hold, they can also deepen their presence either through partnerships or selective investments. The benefits are clear: faster scalability, lower capital needs, diversified revenue, and many others, which can help to deepen their position in the economy. And another way that they can manage risk is by partnering with banks just in case that the licenses are delayed. Now, all of this can show that digital first expansion strategy is the best that can give MTN the speed, resilience to lead Africa's digital future. Thank you.
In conclusion, our project has shown that MTN Nigeria is a powerful force in African telecommunication markets, driven by its scale, strong brand, and reputation, while it also faces significant challenges like regulatory hurdles and market risk. Its strategic focuses on fintech, 5G expansion, and strategic partnership position it for a continued growth and resilience in the future. Based on our analysis, we recommend that MTN continue to prioritize their digital first growth model while leveraging its mobile money platform Momo and African super app Ayubo to tap into African rising digital economy. We also suggest a focus on strategic alliance to lower capital requirements and mitigate risk. Thank you for your time, and we hope our analysis have provided a clear picture about MTN position.
IB Group 1 presentation. Thank you.